All right, so today we're going to talk all about jumps, bounds, and hops, different types of plyometrics. We get asked all the time, how do we start incorporating plyometrics into rehab or training? Stay tuned to this video to find out more. All right, Dr. Michael out here, physical therapist. I'm here with Craig from the Prehab guys. We're going to go over some general guidelines for plyometrics today, how to introduce them in rehab or maybe into your training and how to progress them. But first and foremost, before we start, we're going to go over just some general definitions and nomenclature. So what is a jump? A jump is what Craig is going to demonstrate. Starting on two legs, lifting off the ground and landing on two legs. So it's 2 to 2. That's what we're going to call a jump. A bound, a little bit different, is starting on one leg, lifting in the air, landing on the opposite leg. So it's 1 to 1 but opposite leg. Now the third one we have is a hop. The hop is going to be starting on one leg again, lifting in the air, and then landing on the same leg. So once we define that jump, bound, hop, that's a very easy progression for you. If you're in the gym, like, oh, I'm going to work on jumps today, then maybe once you master that, you can work on bounds, then you can work on hops. Just because when you're on one leg, you have the same amount of body mass on one leg, so it's a lot harder. So that's going to be progression number 1. The second thing we need to consider is direction or planes of motion. So the simplest is just in place. If I say, Craig, we're going to jump in place, we can just work on jumps in place first before even thinking about what other crazy directions we want to go. The next step after mastering in place jumps in this example is we're going to go sagittal plane. So sagittal plane is going front and back. That's going to be like a broad jump or a forward jump. Say Craig then gets ahead of that, then we're going to go into frontal plane. So that's going to be doing more like a sideways jump going out to the side. Once he feels good with that plane of motion, the third plane of motion is the transverse plane. So that's your rotational plane of motion. So that is going to be our second level of progressions. And again, these progressions of planes of motion apply for jumps, bounds, and hops. So the third thing we want to take into consideration is height or a box. Now boxes can be used for many different things. The most traditional thing is like a box jump. So Craig can demonstrate a box jump. You like to see this all the time. People program it to work on power development. That's great, and that's really what it is for. It's giving someone an object, something that they can visualize, and especially if this thing were a lot taller, that they need to jump on. Now when Craig jumps, the goal of this box should actually be that he's trying to clear it with his feet and almost land on it without having to bend his knees. You'll see these people that try to jump on these 50-inch things, and they're landing like this. The goal should be for Craig, get off that ground as high as he can. He's easily clearing the box. In rehab, boxes are really used for a lot of therapists to actually work on landing forces and deceleration. So that's more like a depth landing in the S&C term. So Craig stands on the box. Say we're working on him getting comfortable with absorption. Maybe he's after a knee surgery, an ACL. He's working on just focusing on the landing. We don't have to worry about any jumping at all, any force development, just working on landing. Now, I've already talked about directions. We talked about planes of motion different jumps, bounds, and hops and planes of motion. That all happens here too. So Craig's been doing double leg landings. I can say, Craig, let's do a single leg landing. Okay, he's going to be going there. Then I can say, let's do it in the frontal plane. So then he's going to face this direction. And now he's hopping off, landing on that left foot. And again, that's more like an outside landing on his left foot versus an inside, which would be his right foot. So it gets really tricky. With plyometrics, there's no right or wrong, but there's so many things that you can change depending on the goal. So again, the boxes have a lot of different things that you could throw in, play with them, and have fun with them in your programming. The fourth thing that we can throw in there to make things even more interesting are continuous plyometrics. So that's doing a bound, a hop, or a jump, and doing it in a continuous fashion. So everything we've shown before has been non-continuous. So if Craig's going to do a lateral bound, it means he does the bound, he sticks it, and that's the end of his bound. If we're going to make it continuous, he has to absorb that force rapidly and then push off again. That's going to be a lot harder than doing something with an actual stick. So continuous is another variable that you can add into all of your different jumps, hops, bounds. You could add it into different vectors, and you could add it into having a box. Whether you're coming off a box, jumping on it, whether you're doing a depth drop jump, and you're coming off a box and then jumping up, so many different ways that we can pattern different jumps. And the last most important thing that stays consistent among all the other variables we talked about is landing positions. We usually want to work on landing first. I probably should have mentioned that first, but we're going to talk about landing positions. So Craig's going to jump up and he's going to stick his landing. This landing position, you should feel like no one can push you over. A big gust of wind, your coach can't push you over, your friend. In contrary, for most people in rehab have been told to put the weight on their heels, butt back, butt back, butt back. While that's appropriate at times, when you're in an athletic position, say you're playing tennis, basketball, soccer, you're guarding, your weight's actually on the balls of your foot. You should be able to slide and pretend like you're sliding a piece of paper under your heels. So your heels aren't coming up, but you should have a little bit of give there. This is the athletic position. So Craig needs to go forward, back, sideways, he's able to move. So when you are working on any sort of jump, bound, hop, every time Craig's land, he should be finding that landing position each time. That's from the side. So from the front, we're going to show it as well. Go ahead and go one more time. He needs to find that landing position. He's in a nice hip and knee strategy right in between the two. He's loaded up on the balls of his toes. And again, this is on two legs. One leg's the exact same thing. So Craig, if you're going to land on one leg, everything from the side view is the same. The difference is now from this angle, Craig's body is right in front. He's not leaning way over this way with the landing or opposite. Typically, you're going to see this one. So that's a lot of core and glute control. So the landing needs to be emphasized no matter what variation you're doing. If you're having one of your athletes or yourself, you're doing some crazy box jumps, rotation, and you're falling all over the place in the landing, we're missing the injury prevention aspect. So make sure to work on that as well. Guys, we hope you like this video. This hopefully will give you a lot of ideas in your jumping progressions, your plyometric progressions. If you like it, please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up. Also, let us know what videos you like. We've been doing these weekly with the best videographer, Al, who's behind the camera right now. We'll see you next week.